Now, so what do you think of then Culture Secretary Jeremy Hunt and his statement that you shouldn't have kids if you can't afford to raise them? Hunt told Newsnight host Jeremy Paxman that the jobless needed to take greater responsibility for their families. When quizzed about Chancellor George Osborne's proposal that benefits should be capped at £500 a week, Hunt denied that this was to penalise larger families. Instead, he stated that the number of kids you have is a choice, and if you choose to have loads, then you should be responsible and make sure you can afford to have them. It's not the state's job to do that for you. Now, Labour leader Ed Miliband was outraged by this, saying that poor folk need help, not a lecture. But when you read that nearly 100,000 benefit claimants have 4 or more kids, and 900 of them have as many as 8, you have to ask yourself, does Hunt have a point? Should the state, which actually means you and me, really have to shell out £95,000 a year to the likes of Pete and Sam Smith in that photo and their 10 kids? Then again, Hunt is in essence saying that only rich people should be allowed to have big families, isn't he? And yet, historically, it's always been the other way around, isn't it? The rich get richer, the poor just have loads of kids. And one more thing before we go to the panel, and this I find quite extraordinary. An online poll in The Guardian, on a Guardian website rather, currently has 74.7% of readers backing a cap on benefits, Lowry. Now, you wouldn't have imagined that 10 years ago.
No, you would, but then, what would you see? Because actually, I think it's quite an old-fashioned British virtue of thrift, and that you decide, you know, can I afford to have a child, and then you do or you don't. I mean,
but that sort of disappeared from the 70s on,
But maybe it's his time we brought it back, because I remember my first husband's parents, he was an only child, and they got married straight after the war. He'd been in the RAF, and they could only afford one child, so they only had one child, and that's how they managed. And the problem comes, of course, when you're not and I figure somebody who has 3 children, 2 ex-husbands, we know my history. You know, I'm not intending to have any more, because I can't cope with any more. But, you know, when you're in a relationship and you have one child and then it breaks up and then you meet somebody else and you love them, therefore you want to have their child, and you end up having this series. Now, some people, I kind of feel sorry for them, it hasn't worked out. Some people, there's more of a plan going on here. I'd like a 3-bedroom council house and not a 2-bedroom. There was a mother at my kid's last school who was pregnant with had one child, and she was in a council flat, brand new one, very nice it was. And when she got pregnant again, somebody said to her, "Oh, you know, congratulations," and she was the stereotype gets worse because she was Polish or something, and she said, "I had 2-bedroom flat. I want 3-bedroom flat, so I get pregnant again." And that's actually what she said. Now, she may be unusual, but unfortunately that tarnishes it for everybody else. The point about the benefit system is it's supposed to rescue people in their kind of time of need. It's not supposed to be long-term.
This is where it's gone wrong, isn't it? It's undermined people's ability to stand on their own 2 feet.
My children, I've got 3 kids, we live in a 3-bedroom flat. My boys share. That, to me, seems entirely normal. And if you choose to have a lot of children, I do not honestly see why you need a bedroom for everyone,
Larry,
or why you need to, just
one other thing. When they cap benefits at £500, and I'm not sure when this is going to come through, £500 a week, I mean, they've said it's going to be that nobody on benefits will earn more than someone on the average wage, 26 grand, although I thought it was 24 and a half, but anyway. When this comes through, how is the family with 10 kids going to cope?
But what they're going to do, what I've had to do, they're going to downsize. They're going to have the kids sharing bedrooms like people used to do. They're going to have to shopping at Oxfam. That's the way we brought up with very little money. Because you didn't have credit cards, you couldn't borrow money. So things were on the supermarket aisle and they were put back because we couldn't afford them.
Now, Ray, you said earlier, and I totally agree, people have got to stop griping about the coalition and get behind it, tough decisions to be made. Would you be prepared to tell a family you've got to start shopping in Oxfam for their clothes?
Well, I agree with him. I think he's right. I mean, we have to remember what the purpose of child benefit is for. It's to help those who are on the breadline, so that for the welfare of the child. And that's what's important here. It's not about the parents, whether they can buy another television or whatever. It's about the child's welfare. That's what it was put there for. Now, if there are people abusing that, then they will... Obviously, we have to take steps. We need everybody in the country working.
It's not the child's fault that they've been born into a family of scroungers, but they're going to be the ones who may end up... I'm thinking a £500 cap, 10 kids... You know,
but what do you think the long-term effect of growing up in a household where the parents actually think the system is there for them to abuse? That is not a healthy situation either. It takes away that individual's, you know, opportunity to have some worth, to go out and do something and make something of themselves.
So whatever cutbacks the family have to endure, you rightly balance out. There's a flip side to it, which
I mean,
there
is
are
an
maybe
option-
long-term
There is another
benefits
option,
to
which
be
is get a job, of course.
Oh, Larry, come on, get with the programme, darling. Dr. David.
You won't be surprised to hear that I agree with Jeremy Hunt. I have seen this an awful lot, and I think what I hear back a lot of the time is it is my right to have children.
Yeah.
I do not believe it is your right.
Really?
No, I don't. I think you have to... I agree with Ray. I think that this is about responsibility, which is to say, look, you know how much these children are going to cost. Having 10 children living in a house, £95,000 a year they get on benefits, I think that's unacceptable, and we've got a finite pot of cash which has to be distributed to those people most in need, and if people are taking that lump sum, that means there's less to go round for everyone else. That can't be right. Plus, I also think in child benefit, I, as you know, earlier this week said I wouldn't give it to people who can afford to look after their own children. It should be means tested.
Well, they're saying, because at the moment, of course, there's a lot of people saying it's unfair, the idea that it's just a higher rate taxpayer that loses it. And I believe Ian Duncan-Smith has said that maybe 7 years down the line it will be means tested.
That's an interesting point. I mean, but I agree with you entirely. If people can afford to have children, they shouldn't receive child benefit. Now, that may seem unfair, but the key thing is about our society as a whole. What sort of society do we want? We should have a society where those who can take care of themselves do so, and those who are truly needy are also helped.
OK. I don't know what I think about this, because I don't like the state telling us how many kids we can have, but at the same time, 10 kids on benefits, not right. Let's hear what you have to say. Kirsty.
OK, first we have Michelle on line 2.
Michelle, good morning.
Good morning.
So, what do you think? Has Jeremy Hunt got this one right?
No, he has got it right. I'm a mum of 4. I work, my husband works. My husband's in the forces. He's got a very dangerous job. He pays £1,000 a month in tax. Why should he work to keep others and let them have more children? And it's a vicious circle, isn't it? Because
it's just
while
telling...
if they've got 2, they're encouraged to have more, because the more children they have, the more benefits they get.
And a bigger house.
And a bigger house.
Do you not feel a bit uncomfortable with the idea of the state dictating how many kids you should have or can have?
Well, they're not telling you how many children you can have. They're telling you how many children they're willing to pay for.
And then, OK, let's go with the situations we know of. That family with 10 kids on benefits, at some point in the not-too-distant future, their benefits are going to be capped to £500 a week. They're going to have to move to a smaller house. I'm with Larry. I don't care if the kids have to share bedrooms. I shared a bedroom until I was 12. That's the way it goes. But I worry about them suffering perhaps with poor nutrition, perhaps getting bullied at school for having rubbish clothes. Are these not issues that we should worry about as a society as well?
Well, surely it's the parents' responsibility then to bring them up in the correct way, to encourage them that you don't have to have the best, the newest gadget that's out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What happens to just going out to play? You don't have to be sat down in front of an Xbox.
I just think on £500 a week with 10 kids, I mean, I don't have kids, but I mean, I know they're expensive, and I think 10 kids, £500 a week, that's going to be tough.
Well, I actually come from Cornwall, and Cornwall's average wage down there is between £10,000 and £13,000 a year. It would pay people in Cornwall to go on benefits if they're going to get £25,000 a year.
You're right. You're right, Michelle. You're right. Thank you for the call. You're absolutely right about Cornwall. Let's have another...
We have Pauline next on line 3.
Pauline, good morning.
Good morning.
What do you think about Jeremy Hunt's comments?
I think he's out of order. We've got 1 or 2 families apparently bringing in £500 a week, and they make a big issue of it. You've got it on your programme, you're talking about it. As usual, it's the working class who are getting the blame for everything.
Well, actually, Pauline, Pauline, it's the non-working class that are getting the blame. Let's not forget that.
Yeah, exactly. The non-working class who has all the jobs.
Well, I'm not following you, Pauline.
Right. This lady was on just now, has got 4 children.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Her husband's working.
She works as well.
Let's just say, all right, their marriage breaks down, she's got 4 kids, she's got to go on the dole. Then she's the same as everybody else. Is it her fault?
Why does she have to go on the diet? Sorry, Larry has three... Sorry,
Can
Pauline.
I say to Pauline that I understand what you're saying, that when you've got particularly small children, it's very hard to find employment that works around school hours and all that. So I absolutely understand. But as Ray was going to say, there's a lady in the paper today who was a single parent who got a job as a dinner lady, then became a teaching assistant, did all this while she had 2 small children. It is possible. It's not easy. There are parts of the country where it'll be more difficult to find part-time work. It does, and at the moment, sometimes it may pay you better. It's exhausting trying to work around small children. But the moral argument surely has to be that you cannot have a situation where you have some people having to pay for other people's large families.
Absolutely right. I mean, I think the message is the world is not a fair place. And,
No, the world is not a fair place. The government is not a fair government. You're sitting there now talking about people who've got children who are unemployed. Why are you not talking about Labour Party's got millionaires sitting on the front bench? It's them who's put us in this situation. I am now unemployed. I've remained redundant twice. I've got children, so, you know, I might have had 5 children. Now I'm unemployed, I've got 5 children to keep. Is that my fault? I'm signing on.
You see,
I've got 5 kids and everybody else is paying for them, regardless that I've been working all my life. All of a sudden, I'm a villain.
You see, I think...
Why are you looking to me? Why aren't you looking at the top?
Your point is that situations change and people can find themselves in situations they never imagined they would be in, and I'm very sympathetic to that view, Pauline.
I agree with that, and I think that's why we have to take real care in how we look at parties, who they choose to be their leaders, who we choose to represent us, because that's the situation we've got to now, where there was an awful mess left, and now we've got to make really difficult decisions, and people will feel the pain of that.
OK, I want to get one more in if I can. Thank you, Pauline. Let's have another.
We have Kim next on line 4.
Morning, Kim. This is going to be after our last call. What would you like to say about Jeremy Hunt's comments?
Morning.
Morning.
I think it's absolutely right. If you can't afford to keep your own children, then don't have them.
What about if you're in Pauline's position and you suddenly find yourself alone, your partner runs off, you're alone, you can't, or in her view, I mean, she said you have to go on the dole. That's the bit I took issue with. You don't have to go on the dole, but you may have a period of time where you may be out of work, so you'll be on benefits for a bit. Are you sympathetic then to someone there? The state needs to throw a protective arm around a family like that, doesn't it?
I am, yeah, but you don't need to sit on your backside for all your life producing loads and loads of children that you can't afford and you expect everyone else to keep. I mean, if you've been in that position of the previous caller, then yes, I am sympathetic. And I've had that situation myself. I've got 2 children, they're grown up now, I've got grandchildren as well, but I've worked all my life, even when my children were small, and I got a job that actually fitted in around my husband's job. He was a postman, so he used to work in the mornings, I used to work in the afternoons, so he could look after the children.
I've said this before when people have gone about immigrants to this country, that I'm sitting there thinking we're still at the point when, before the crash, we had a million Brits unemployed and 1 million jobs going begging. And you're thinking, well, how does that compute? You know, why can't we put the two together? If the jobs are good enough for Polish people to come over, do work and send money back to their families...
Yeah, they will, on the whole, not have childcare to pay for. That's the issue if you're a mother. If your earnings are wiped out by childcare, I can absolutely understand when you say, why would I why do this?
The building opposite me were living in one room, all the builders together, sharing the rent, making an effort. And it's just... I think you guys have been very, very reasonable about it, including Pauline. And it's just obviously a thing we're going to come back to time and time again over the next year or two. So thank you for that. We'll move on, if you'll forgive me, to our final panel discussion of the day, and that is a moral dilemma, really. If you're given a letter by a friend who only had a short time to live, but they told you not to open that letter until after they died, would you respect their wishes or have a peek? 0207 173 5555 is the number. What if you were told its contents promised you great things? Could you wait then? I suspect not, but we'll find out next.
Which scientists put their greatest work in a letter not to be opened till after their death? Charles Darwin, Albert Einstein or Marie Curie? Find out after the break.